Hello. Thank you for taking this time to watch this video and listen to what I have to say. Today, I would like to talk about this role-playing community and server and what it means to me. I joined this community June of 2013. At that time, I was young and ambitious with this form of acting and creating stories. I was active for about a year before I left my home for 2 years to do humanitarian work and become a teacher. During that time, I barely ever saw a computer and I didn't have access to the internet. But when my service was over and I got to return home, I wanted to see what became of the DayZ RP community. The game was now the standalone edition, and with that brought some challenges. For starters, the admins and game masters had very little control of the server, and on top of that, the game was very buggy in its early development, and some versions of the game even being unplayable. The vehicle power game that we once had was non-existent. The forming of group bases that we all coveted was technically impossible. But as we all know, the creators of this game would patch out their mistakes, iron out their fallacies, and leave us with this amazing experience. But I'm sure you didn't come here to listen to our historical sob story. You came here to hear what I have to say. And to be frank, what I have to say is more in the line of a proposition as well as a presentation. On that note, I would like to go back on the topic of base building. And for those of you who are quite newer to the community, I could say, I'll start by saying, back in my day, like an old man, in the days of the mod, base building was not as easy and direct as it is today. You couldn't just go to a town or a barn, put up walls, put up gates, put up watchtowers, and call it your own. Instead, it was a lot more involved. You had to work closely with game masters, admins, and sometimes even lore masters to create a base using the assets of the game, and this base would be baked into the map itself. These bases were great because they were hand-designed by the groups who created them. It was fun traveling to these places because it was a great place to meet new survivors, possibly set up a trade, or even participate in a political meeting. But with the push to DayZ Standalone, that all went away. But with that, I would like to give you my ideas and proposition. Let me present Crossroad. This is a survivor-built settlement, built around a railroad track on an old abandoned locomotive. The people who dwell here are small amount, but fierce in their will to survive. They are self-sustained by a healthy trade between them and an allied faction and settlement called the Quarry. The Quarry was settled in the early days of the disaster, but over time was built up to this tragic metropolis. Built upon the rocks of cliffs, they find themselves safe from the infected below. Now, narrative aside, these two settlements each were built and designed in an offline editor, and one by one they were imported into a stable server. These settlements were detailed with the thought that survivors would be building them, and they were detailed for a rich background story. I am proposing that we bring these types of settlements back into DayZ RP. I'm not saying bring the Quarry and the Crossroads into DayZ RP. No, they were just for examples and built for proof of concept. But they are to show you what is possible with these custom-made settlements in ways of enhancing and furthering our role-playing experience and they can also be used as tools to push lore events. If anything were to be accomplished today, it would only to start the conversation about bringing these back or not. So that's why I leave this to you, the community, to talk amongst yourselves, talk about the pros and the cons, and try to be as objective as possible. I am not saying that bringing these back will fix everything, but I do believe it will be a good step in the right direction.